Okay, hi everyone. I'm excited today because I'm having a conversation with Kuba Ambrose. I hope I'm saying your name right. Welcome, Kuba. And I've been a fan for a while, and I'm glad I reached out on Facebook and asked you if you'd like to do this conversation with me. So I'm glad you said yes.
Yeah,
Um,
many thanks for inviting me, and it's a pleasure to meet you on here, Susie.
thank you.
Thanks for reaching out.
Yeah. So tell me, who who is Kuba? I know you said you live in Vienna. I
Yeah,
don't really know much about you except that you have amazing art. And
thank you.
if people are not familiar with your art, they need to go check it out right now.
um, yeah, so my I was born in Australia. That's where I originally come from, and both of my parents are Polish. They were migrants that came in the 80s, and I was sort of brought up in Melbourne, and that's where I spent most of my life. And yeah, through different circumstances, I found my way to Europe, and I've been living in Vienna for about 7 or 8 years now. Yeah.
Nice. Vienna is a beautiful city. I was just there recently.
Okay.
Too bad I didn't know you were around.
Ah.
What kind of art do you make?
um, well, mostly it's been oil painting and egg tempera, so a combination of those two, in what's called the mish technique. It's
Mhm.
kind of working in layers, and it's mostly representational art, so images of things from the real world as well as things from the imagination. Yeah, so I think for the most part, my art's sort of been going in two directions. One of them has been looking at nature and trying to learn from the real world, from also from the works of the old masters, and trying to sort of develop a language or a technique, and then but to use that as a way to explore the imagination, the realm of visions and imagination and things like that. So that's where my passion is. It's for the imaginative side of things, but it's also been about combining both so that it can sort of strengthen,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, looking at your work, it sort of reminds me of biblical themes for some reason. Like when I see it, I didn't check out the titles, all of them, but that's the sense I get. It's very, very powerful stuff.
Mm.
What inspires you to make your art?
Yeah.
Where
um
do you get your inspiration from?
Yeah, it's different sources. I think it's things that I'm interested in. A lot of my work has been sort of biblical or about different mystical themes, or things about the spirituality. And in a lot of ways, it's been kind of reflecting my own journey and the things that where my interest or my attention's been going. And sometimes it's maybe I'm reading a book and I find something that's really stands out, and it's like it brings an image to my mind and I feel like I have to paint this, but I'm not sure why I'm attracted to certain themes. Or sometimes it's in dreams. I get a dream, I get told what to paint.
Oh, wow.
And other times it's more like just following that thing, like that passion or that sort of thing, that spark. It could be like you're walking down the street and you see like a beautiful leaf on the ground, and you feel like, yeah, I want to capture that color. I want to bring that into my work. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
different places.
I'm very curious about the dream part where you're told what to paint. I mean, I've had dreams that I've wanted to paint, but I was never really told that I should paint this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's been strange. It's from, I think from a young age, it's been sort of something that's been given to me, is these experiences of dreams.
Nice.
And it's actually one of the key moments of my life was when I was about 12, 13 years old. And I had this very powerful dream of God the Father, and kind of an experience of that. And that really kind of shook me up out of my everyday reality and showed me that there's this whole other side of life that we don't really know about, the eternal side of life or the spiritual side. and that also made me sort of have this hunger in my heart to try to find out more about it. What's at the core of the essentials of life.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I suppose that's where the term visionary artist comes from. I mean,
mm,
distinguished from all other art. At times I had a problem with it, like why say that that person is a visionary and that person's not? But I guess once you bring in like the spiritual or the sacred aspect into it, then I guess it qualifies for that.
sure.
I
Like,
don't
what
know if
is it?
you have another take on it. I'd love to hear it. I know a lot of people probably do.
Yeah, it
We
can
could all
be an
join the conversation.
uncomfortable. It can be definitely like an uncomfortable term, I guess. Like some sort of special banner that you put on yourself that you're like a visionary. I mean, that sounds kind of ridiculous,
Yeah, exactly.
but um, I think, I guess people have different interpretations of what that means, and um, like the difference also between having a vision or something that really comes from within, or hallucinating, or having a daydream or a fantasy, and where do you draw the line between having something that's like a revelation and something that's more like a projection, or so.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's probably like a broad thing. I mean, for me it means like just trying to depict what's in the unseen, or what we can't see with our physical senses.
Hmm, hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Mm.
Do you have some samples that you can show us now, or should we just keep it a mystery for people to look
I've
at?
got a few little pieces here. Yeah.
Oh, I would love to see something.
So
Wish it was in person. That'd be better. Maybe
this
some.
is a little piece. I don't
Oh,
know if you can
nice.
see it. Yeah, and it's more from the realistic side of things. It's a study of my grandmother, which I did, and my cousin's child, and it's something which it's one of the paintings that I do sort of to learn the technique, to learn how to paint the human form or nature. And yeah, and
Yeah.
it's interesting also being reconnecting with my family heritage, and going to Poland and
Mhm.
visiting some of these family members has been sort of interesting.
Yeah.
uh,
Was that Mish technique as well?
no, that was
No.
just oils. So sometimes I paint just directly with oils, and other times it's both.
Yeah,
So,
I get that. Um,
I can show you another one. This is more kind of I guess, a visionary theme.
yeah.
Uh, this one's called The House of Many Mansions, and it's acrylic and egg tempera on board, which is a strange combination. But and yeah, it was painted while I was living in Kuranda in Queensland a few years back, and it was actually just a piece of wood that I was
Yeah.
using
I
to
think it's
step
the
over
best. Yeah.
into my little house that I was walking over. And one day I decided to start painting something on it.
Yeah. I love painting on wood. It's the best.
Yeah,
I love that piece too. That's an amazing piece.
thank you.
How long does it take you to get one of those painted? They're like a certain amount of time, or does it vary every time?
It always varies. I think sometimes it's 6 months, sometimes it's just a few weeks, but it
Totally.
does take up a lot of time.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So now we come to the juicy part. Can you describe your creative process? I
Okay.
know it varies, but in general, if you could just give a general sense.
Yeah. Um, so generally, it begins with an idea or the vision, and and also maybe even before that, asking a higher source, asking God for inspiration, and then being receptive and just allowing, whenever is the right time for that to come as an idea. And then the next part is when the idea comes, and being perceptive enough to recognize that this is what I need to paint, or what you need to paint. Like when you recognize the idea, and then you see that this is worth painting, because you're gonna put a lot of time and energy into this, like maybe hundreds of hours. So it should be something that I care about. So usually I jot it down and write it down on a piece of paper, and try to describe it as best as I can, so that I anchor that vision. And I don't have all the clues, about how it's going to look. But then, sometimes I forget about it. But then when I'm going through my notes, I find it again, and I'm like, oh, this was really important. I have to go deeper into this. And sometimes I've got these potential ideas, like seeds, which are just waiting for the right time. Like some of the paintings that I'm working on now, the idea came for them 5-6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But when I wrote down in my diary, it was like very important and very potent. Like you have to do this,
Oh, wow.
otherwise I would forget. So then I take that idea, and it's usually just described with words, language, and then I make little thumbnail sketches and try to work out a very simple composition. And then I take that, the thumbnail sketch, which is the strongest compositionally, and I do a drawing, just a pen drawing or a pencil drawing. And sometimes I would use that as the basis for the painting. And other times I would photograph it and project it if it's a very large piece, And then the actual painting process starts with, working with the different layers of egg tempera and all of this. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think you studied the technique yourself, no?
Yeah, I did a workshop with Amanda Sage, so I've only learned it once. I feel like I could use a refresher, but I've got so much on my hands right now, and I'm definitely going to go back to it.
Sure.
I love that you said that you keep a diary and you write as much detail as you can. That's a great thing to keep in mind for me as an artist. I mean, I appreciate that you shared that. And also the thumbnail part, that's all really great, because then you could kind of work it out in a smaller way and then enlarge it. Thank you for sharing those.
Yeah, sure. When it's very small, it's very quickly you can change things, and you don't have to, because if you have to work it out on the canvas, it's a lot of hard work.
I know. I've had paintings where I've had to do that. So yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. What is your biggest fear as an artist?
My biggest fear? It's a difficult question.
I know.
Maybe, I guess.
Maybe don't have any, I don't know.
I think there's some of the fears would be not having my work be seen or appreciated. And then on the other hand, maybe it being seen too much and appreciated too much. So there's this like hide and seek thing where artists, generally myself and a lot of visual artists, are quite introverted, and we play this game of hide and seek, that we want to show something and then we want to pull back our energy, Yeah. So that's part of it. And the other part would be like, just the day-to-day stuff getting in the way of what your soul really wants, like the worries about rent and, all kinds of things which get in the way of following your dream, and just getting swamped by all the everyday stuff.
A big machine is what it's called. Like I said to a friend the other day, I'm like, I wish I just live under a rock. That would solve a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but we're here and we got to do something. We got to deal with it.
It'd be difficult to paint under a rock, so I guess that's what keeps me not living under a rock. What are your long-term goals for your artwork?
Mm. Well, what I've been dreaming about is working in some sort of form in a sacred art center, or helping towards create a sacred art center. So a lot of my work has been moving more towards like sacred art images, and decorating spaces and places like that. So not necessarily going the route of galleries or exhibitions and that sort of thing, which, yeah, for many years I was trying to sort of, enter into that gallery world, but then I realized that maybe that's not necessarily the way that I'm meant to be going, so yeah, I mean, I'm working towards that, but also keeping it open and seeing what is, because I can make my own plans, but then maybe there's plans which are
Yeah.
better, which I
Yeah,
listen to.
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's a beautiful vision. Um, are there any artists that you're following recently?
Many. Do you mean living artists or artists from the
Yeah,
past?
yeah, living, mostly living artists.
How do you mean follow?
Like watching their work every time they
Yeah.
put out something new.
Well, I think I'm really, yeah, I look at a lot of work, so I'm
Yeah, yeah.
seeing a lot of artists, and
No one specific.
I can't think of anyone. I mean, I look a lot at the art from the past. Like this year, I've been really diving deep into the work of Bouguereau, William Bouguereau, the French painter. And I'm really into the artists that lived at the turn of the century before Impressionism came,
Okay.
and just at that crux between like the academic artists and the Impressionist artists. Like before that whole academic tradition sort of collapsed. And I think a lot of artists are like, after all this modern art which has come, artists are now trying to look back and see how can we like salvage the real art and bring it back. And there seem to be different camps of people. Like there are these followers of Odd Nerdrum and that sort of kitsch school, and then there are these classical realist artists really, creating beautiful things, and then the visionary artists as well. And so it's interesting to see, also to dream about where this is going to go in 5, 10, 20 years.
Yeah. Where is it gonna go? I wonder if there's gonna be something like that's gonna like be more intense than visionary art. You said real art. What would you define real art as?
That's a tricky question.
I know. I try not to ask that,
Yeah.
but because you said it.
Well, these days, what's considered art is anything's possible, but when you ask most people on the street, they wouldn't agree with that. They have an idea that paintings which are well painted or beautiful, or even at least maybe ugly, but showing the human emotions and showing, like, expressing. I always think of music, like if you have music which touches your soul, touches your feelings and works your emotions, then it's real music.
Yeah.
But if you just have noise, if it's just chaotic and disharmonic, then it's just garbage.
I guess one of the definitions of real art would be that if it stirs something in the viewer.
Yeah.
Some sort of emotion. It could even make them angry. They don't have to be happy.
For sure. Like the way that I look at it is like, I always have this idea of this trinity of the hands, the eyes, and the heart. And I look at it as the eyes, or the eye is like the vision or the idea, and the hands are the technique, or how you actually develop that, the painting, the way that you do it. And then the heart is the emotion, or the thing that's driving it, the spirit behind it. And I think when all those three elements are present, then you have good art.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe one of those things, like you could have a painting which is really beautifully painted, but when you look at it, it doesn't move you at all. You know?
hmm
Or
hmm
you can have a painting that's like expressionist. It's all over the place. It's not really well painted, but it really does move your emotions. You know,
yeah.
yeah, it's like a
Love,
combination.
I
Yeah.
like that. It's a
Mm.
good thing to keep in mind when painting. Um, so if you ever came back, would you still want to be an artist? And
You
if
mean
not,
like
what would you want?
reincarnation?
If you
I
ever,
don't believe in reincarnation,
you
but
don't.
I think, yeah, I've thought about the question. If um,
I don't.
I really do like my life as an artist, you know, but I also love music. You know, I love it would be probably some form of creative expression, you know. Um, but I think the circumstances of my life, like there's a reason why we're born into this particular family in this particular time, and you know, and for me, it's been about discovering how to find the treasures within those things, and also um, the difficult parts of that, you know, the challenges that we have in life that we're born with, or whatever it is that we have to work through, and then to try to find the gold out of that.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
absolutely. Um, this is one of my favorite questions, and I have to ask it. What superpower would you like to have? Or maybe you have one already.
superpower. um,
I think all artists have some superpower somewhere. Maybe they don't know how to name it.
um, I would like to be humble. You know, I would like to be humble because I think that's like the foundation, and it's difficult to be an artist and have that as well. You know.
I love that you said that. You must be highly intuitive too. I just tweeted like not even 3 hours ago. My tweet was, "Stay humble, people, stay humble."
Yeah.
Love that. Thank you so much. So, your art is available for purchase,
Yeah.
and people can find you on Instagram and Facebook, and you do have a website.
Yeah, kubaambrose.com. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Um,
I'm just updating it now, so the shop is active, so you can check it out.
you ship all over the world?
Sorry?
Do you ship all over the world?
Yes. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Um, okay, I don't think I have any other questions. I guess I would ask, just to wrap things up, what advice you would give to artists that are just starting out.
Hmm. Um, I would say develop your drawing skills and draw from nature, and but also to maintain your authentic style of your sort of interior style. You know, not to lose that, the
Mhm.
way that you naturally create. And if you can, find a good school or a good atelier where you can study, and don't go to the wrong place. You know, don't go to the university that's going to teach you not how to paint but how to, you know, create theories.
Yeah, yeah,
And also, yeah, to be really disciplined, and not to depend on that discipline from outside sources, but to try to spend each day making art for a few hours, or you know, even half an hour, just to give it that time so it becomes a habit. And yeah, kind of always believe that you're a student, you know, never stop learning. Yeah. Yeah, and ask for inspiration from the divine.
yeah,
To
and
say.
from other artists too.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe find an artist whose work you really appreciate and see if you can contact them and maybe hang out with them, or find out maybe somebody that lives in your area, you know, try to like I was lucky enough to find a mentor or a few mentors in my life and spend time with them, and it changed my life. You know, it
Yeah,
changed the direction, and it showed me that it is possible to live an artist's life and not and to trust that, you know. And yeah.
wonderful. Thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. Thank you for sharing all your wisdoms and more about your art. Now I know a little bit more about you than I did before.
Thank you.
And stay in touch. I'm sure we'll be chatting again sometime. I'm hoping to change this setting and have like some sort of a grant come in for this so I can
Ah,
keep doing it. So we'll see. It's my plan.
fantastic. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, Susie. Bye bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye. Ciao.